So good morning. So in this video, we are going to see Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. So Gettysburg is a place in America, in Pennsylvania. So Abraham Lincoln gave a speech in this particular place. Let's see about this in detail. So as we all know, Abraham Lincoln was the 16th president of United States, served from 1861 until his assassination in 1865. So he is he was born in log cabin in Kentucky. Lincoln rose from a humble beginnings to become one of the America's greatest leaders. There is a proverb called the proverb says that if you are born poor, it is not your mistake, and if you die poor, it is your mistake. So he lives abiding by the proverb. He actually born poor in a small log cabin in Kentucky and died as a America's president. So this drastic change in his life is a greatest example in history. So he is best known for leading the nation through the American Civil War, preserving the Union and working to abolish slavery through the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863 and the passage of 13th Amendment in 1865. So this Emancipation Proclamation is nothing but he wanted the slaves to be freed, and he supported the Confederate states. So in North America we have northern states and southern states. He supported and he wanted the Confederate southern states to be free, and then this lead paved the way for the 13th Amendment in 1865. In 1865 only he was also assassinated, and this particular amendment it freed nearly 3.5 million enslaved people. Yeah, actually, his assassination is also reminding us a poem as a literature student. We know that "O Captain, My Captain," written by Walt Whitman, is a poem which deals about the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. Fine. And then Lincoln's major works and speeches. These are some of the speeches given by him. House Divided Speech in 1858. First inaugural address in 1861, Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, and Gettysburg Address in 1863, and second inaugural address in 1865. This is how through his words he inspired many people. And this particular Gettysburg speech is published in 19 November 1863. So in the place, the speech was delivered in the place Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, at the dedication ceremony of the Soldiers' National Cemetery. So historical background is actually the Battle of Gettysburg took place in July 1863. After 4.5 months, nearly after 4.5 months, around November 1863, he spoke this particular thing in front of the soldiers' tomb. So their cemetery, the families of the dead soldiers, they assembled nearly 50,000 families. They assembled in that particular cemetery, and he gave a speech, powerful speech for the families, and he gave he actually emerged as a symbol of hope for the people. So we have to have in mind that the war took place, the American Civil War took place in July 1863, and this particular speech came after 4 months in November 1863. So we have to have in our mind this particular name, Edward Everett. So this speech was given during the cemetery's consecration ceremony, as we know, following 2 hours oration by Edward Everett. So he is a great orator in America. He was a great orator in America. Actually, his speech was too long. Literally 2 hours he spoke, and the Abraham Lincoln has to be the second person who speaks after Edward Everett. Abraham Lincoln made his speech very short and crisp manner. Only 2 minutes he gave the speech. So even though being 2 minutes, the speech was justifiable and it was really worth hearing, because the famous democracy definition is given in this particular speech only. So, opening lines. Let's enter into the passages. We have only three paragraphs. If 2 minutes speech contains only three paragraphs here. So, opening lines. 4 scores and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proportion that all men are created equal. This is the opening stanza, opening paragraph. The lines actually says that 4 scores and 7 years ago means 87 years. Actually, 4 score means 80 years. And he's saying 4 score and 7, so it is 87 years. Here, Lincoln refers to 1776. The year 1776 is the Declaration of Independence for the people. So he is reminding the historical background, and he's also referring that the founding fathers who created the United States, invoking their authority and vision, their ancestors have provided such kind of fruitful freedom, independence, declaration of the independence for the people. He's mentioning that, and the conceived in liberty means the nation was born from the idea of freedom and self-governance, not from the monarchy or tyranny, he says. And all men are created equal. This is the fundamental principle of equality, we could say. So Lincoln quotes the Declaration of Independence, emphasizing the fundamental principle of equality that the war was testing. Moving on to the second paragraph. Here, the Civil War context, he says that the lines given in the black color is the exact line taken from the original piece. So now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether the nation or any nation so conceived or so dedicated can long endure. Here, Lincoln frames the Civil War as an existential test of whether the democratic nation founded on liberty and equality could survive. So here we could see this Civil War creates how people are determined, or even after so many struggles, they stood for themselves, and they can check their endurance. So he is talking about that endurance. And then battlefield dedication. We are met on a great battlefield of war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that the nation might live. So he is saying that he is dedicating this particular place to the soldiers who dedicated their lives to the people, living people of the country. So here the great battlefield refers to the Gettysburg battle, where over 50,000 soldiers were died in that American Civil War. And final resting place means the cemetery being dedicated, and giving their lives means the ultimate sacrifice of the soldiers, and that nation might live refers to their deaths preserve the Union. So here we could see the Abraham Lincoln, he is dedicating the place, this battlefield of Gettysburg, to the dead soldiers. And then appropriateness of the ceremony. He is saying that it is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. So actually Lincoln acknowledges that honoring the fallen soldiers with a dedication ceremony is both fitting and proper. So it is necessary, he says. This dedicating ceremony is very, very necessary. It is appropriate to the circumstances, and it is also morally right to dedicate them, he says. This simple statement actually validates the purpose of the gathering before introducing a profound shift in perspective. And then the central paradox, beyond human power. Here he says that in a large sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, or we cannot hallow this ground. We could see he's first dedicating the land to the people, and then later he says that the fame, this particular land got fame because of the soldiers they sacrificed, who sacrificed their life, he says. So he's saying that not just we cannot just dedicate or consecrate, or we can honor the soldiers by dedicating the land to them. He's saying that the land is getting honor, pride, fame due to the soldier's soul and death, he says. Nothing but the land is, the soldiers are not getting pride because of the land, but the land is actually getting all the honor and fame due to these soldiers, he says. So the word dedicate means to set apart for a special purpose, and consecrate means to make sacred or a holy thing, and hallow means to honor as sacred, to venerate. So he is using a parallel structure and a repetition technique. Brave men who consecrate the ground. So brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. So he says that brave men, living and dead, here means that Lincoln honors both the survivors as well as the casualties. So struggled here emphasizes their combat and sacrifice, and their consecration far above our poor power here means that human words and ceremonies are inadequate. He says that human words and ceremonies, or all these dedications, consecrate things, or all is not sufficient for honoring the soldiers who lost their life in the war, he says, and add or detract, nothing can increase or diminish their sacrifice, he says. And what will be remembered? The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here, he says. Actually, this line is has become an ironical one, historical irony. Let's see why. So he is giving importance to the action, what they did, but not to the words. He's saying the words spoken here in Gettysburg may be forgotten in the future, but not the actions did by the soldiers, he says. Actually, the action or the brave thing done by the soldiers in the battlefield will not be forgotten by the people, he says. But actually, Lincoln believed his words would be forgotten. That is what I'm trying to say, that the Gettysburg Address became one of the most famous speeches in the history, and it is really memorized by the generations of the students. So this is given in this box. We could see historical irony. This is a historical irony. He is thinking that the speech will be forgotten, but the sacrifice of the soldiers will be remembered forever, he says. But actually, this speech is remembered till now. And the call to action, the unfinished work, it is for us, the living, rather to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. So here he is saying the particular war, it didn't bring a end to their cause, fighting cause, or their struggle didn't come to the end. This is what he's trying to say. So the work is unfinished, and they literally have to continue this fight for the freedom. And actually, he is converting the Emancipation Proclamation is nothing but he is actually converting the American Civil War into a fight for the freedom. So he's saying that this work is unfinished, literally, and recognition means here it is for us, the living, means the responsibility falls on the survivors and not the dead ones. And to be dedicated here refers to commitment to the cause. And the unfinished work refers to the war, and the fight for equality should continue. So nobly advanced refers to recognizing the soldiers' heroic progress. So that's all. And then the great task remaining, it is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored death we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. So he is saying that the great task is actually winning the war and preserving the union. So ensuring the principles of liberty and equality to survive. An increased devotion is honored death. So those honored death here refers to those who sacrificed everything, and the last full measure of devotion refers to complete sacrifice, giving one's life. And then resolution, they shall not have died in vain. So he here says that the death of the soldier is not actually useless. So their struggle brought a fruitful freedom for the people in future, he says, so that we here highly resolve that these deaths shall not have died in vain. He says, so Lincoln makes a solemn resolution, firm determination that the soldier's death must have meaning and purpose. The living must ensure their sacrifice achieves its intended goal. And this phrase has become one of the most quoted lines in American history, American history, representing the obligation to honor sacrifice through meaningful action. New birth of freedom, so that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom. So new birth here is, it is a metaphor for renewal and transformation of the nation. And under God here refers to, he invokes the divine providence and moral authority. And then freedom here refers to not just preserving the old union, but creating a more equal and just nation. So this phrase suggests that the Civil War would lead to the abolition of slavery and a recommitment to the founding principle that all men are equal. This is the fundamental principle of equality which he stated in the first paragraph. All men are created equal, he says. And then the closing statement is the most important famous statement all over the world. So this is considered as the definition of the democracy. So democracy is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. So here he says, and that government of the people and by the people and for the people shall not perish from the earth, he says. So let's see what of the people means. So government derives from the consent of the governed. So consent of the people is needed, and by the people refers to the citizens' participation in their own governance through democracy. So this refers to the voting rights the people have, so that they can participate and choose the leader whom they want to be ruled by. And for the people refers to the government exists to serve the interest of the citizen. So government is actually present to serve the people. It is for the people actually, he says. And Lincoln's closing defines the democracy itself and frames the Civil War as the battle for democratic government's survival worldwide. So that's all. We have come to the end. And the literary and rhetorical devices, let's see. Repetition here. So it is repeated. We cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, and we cannot hallow is a repetition. And parallelism, of the people, by the people, for the people, is a parallelism. So these two lines are also called as tricolon. Tricolon is also a literary device where three times the same thing is repeated. We cannot, we cannot, we cannot is repeated three times, and one of the people, by the people, for the people, it is repeated in three times. So it can be considered as a repetition, parallelism, and tricolon. Three times it is repeated. And then antithesis. Here antithesis means two opposite things are said in adjacent concepts. So what we say here versus what they did here. He is making a contrast between words and the action. So this is antithesis. And metaphor, new birth of freedom, nation's transformation as a rebirth. And allusion is 7 years ago. He is referring to the historical event, the Declaration of Independence in 1776, which happened in 1776. So here he is using allusion. So that's all. Moving on for the MCQs. So in which year was Gettysburg Address delivered? In 1863. What does 7 years ago refers to? 1776. The Gettysburg Address was delivered at the dedication of a soldiers' cemetery in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And what rhetorical device is used in? We cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow. So repetition and parallelism. And the phrase last full measure of devotion refers to giving one's own life. Lincoln's speech redefines the Civil War as a struggle for equality and democratic government. Gettysburg, the Battle of Gettysburg took place in Pennsylvania. And who was the main orator before Lincoln at the Gettysburg ceremony is Edward Everett. He literally spoke for 2 hours, and Abraham Lincoln, he made his speech in a short manner for 2 minutes. And the phrase new birth of freedom suggests the transformation through abolition of slavery. How long was Lincoln's Gettysburg address? For about 2 minutes. Government of the people, by the people, for the people defines the democracy. Lincoln served as 16th President of United States. We have to make a note of this. 16th President. The Emancipation Proclamation was issued in 1863. Which amendment abolished slavery in the United States? 13th Amendment. Lincoln's House Divided speech was delivered in, these are the information apart from this Gettysburg speech. So the speech House Divided was delivered in 1858. The central theme of Gettysburg Address is preservation of democracy and equality. Lincoln was assassinated in 1865. The phrase, "These dead shall not have died in vain," means their sacrifice must achieve its purpose. It should not go useless, he says. So that's all. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you.